This is the story of an impossible prison and the men who dissolved into the night. The escape from Alcatraz. Alcatraz was not just a prison, it was a statement. It was a fortress built on a barren rock in the middle of San Francisco Bay, surrounded by icy, turbulent currents that, it was said, no man could survive. It was the end of the line, a place designed to hold the unholdable, the most dangerous, disruptive, and escape-prone inmates in the American system. In its 29 years as a federal penitentiary, the officials would state with grim pride, no one had ever successfully escaped. And then came Frank Morris. Morris was a career criminal, but he was also brilliant, with an IQ reported in the top 2% of the population. He was an escape artist who had been caught time and again, and Alcatraz was meant to be the final lock to his cage. There he met two other men, the brothers John and Clarence Anglin. They were bank robbers, known for being inseparable and, crucially, for their experience navigating the waters of their childhood in Florida. Together, in the damp, soul-crushing quiet of the world's most secure prison, they began to plot the impossible. Their target was a small ventilation grill in the back of their cells. Over 6 months, the plan unfolded with genius patience. They began to dig. Using metal spoons from the mess hall and a makeshift drill improvised from a stolen vacuum cleaner motor, they took turns chipping away at the crumbling, salt-damaged concrete around the vent. To hide the noise, Frank Morris would play his accordion during the prison's designated music hour, the loud, wheezing notes covering the sound of metal scraping against stone. But the digging was only the first problem. The second was the nightly bed count. To fool the guards, the men did something ingenious. In the prison workshop and their cells, they began to build dummy heads. Using a mixture of soap, toothpaste, and concrete dust, they sculpted faces. They then visited the prison barber shop, collecting real human hair from the floor, which they meticulously glued to the heads, strand by strand. On the night of June 11, 1962, the plan went into action. As the guards began their rounds, they looked into the cells of Morris and the Anglins. They saw what they always saw, a head on a pillow, the blankets rising and falling in the dim light. But the men were gone. They had placed the dummy heads on their pillows, piled towels under their blankets to fake the shape of a body, and slipped through the holes they had dug. The holes led into an unguarded utility corridor that ran the length of the cell block. They had been using it as a secret workshop for months. The men climbed the pipes inside the corridor up to the roof of the cell block. Then, in the dark, they navigated a maze of vents and pipes, shimmied down the prison's bakery smokestack to the ground, climbed 2 12-foot-high barbed wire fences, and made their way to the island's northeast shore, a blind spot for the guard towers. Waiting for them was their getaway vehicle, a 6 by 14-foot inflatable raft, painstakingly stitched and glued together from more than 50 stolen prison raincoats. They even had paddles and life vests, also made from the raincoats. They pumped it full of air using a concertina, a small accordion that they had modified into a bellows. Then, sometime after 10 p.m., Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin pushed their raft into the black, freezing water of the San Francisco Bay and paddled into the fog. They were never seen again. The next morning, a guard went to wake one of the men. When he nudged the head, it fell to the floor with a thud. The alarm was sounded, and one of the largest manhunts in history began. The FBI was adamant the men had failed. They concluded that the raft, overloaded and facing the bay's powerful currents, had broken apart, and the men had drowned. Their bodies, the feds claimed, were simply swept out to sea. But here is where the solved case unravels. No bodies were ever found, not one. For years, the mother of the Anglin brothers received flowers delivered anonymously every Mother's Day. Years later, a family friend claimed he had taken a photograph of John and Clarence Anglin alive and well on a farm in Brazil in 1975. The forensic analysis of the photo has been, to this day, inconclusive but compelling. And in 2013, the FBI received a letter. It began, "My name is John Anglin. I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962. Yes, we all made it that night, but barely." The author's handwriting, when compared to John Anglin's, was inconclusive. Alcatraz was closed less than a year after the escape, deemed it too expensive to run. Its perfect record was broken. Did 3 men die in the icy waters, or did they pull off the single greatest prison break in history and live out their lives as free men? The U.S. Marshals Service still, to this day, keeps the case open.